We're going to talk about a few things that are important to us, and in particular, because we have a member of our armed services here, also someone who has served in government. I want to get your opinion on Defend the Guard legislation. Right? So we have a gentleman here, Derek Prue. Can you raise your hand, Derek? Right over there. So he is leading the legislation for Defend the Guard. He actually helped our executive director of the Free State Project, Eric Brakey, by bringing in people to testify when he presented the bill in the main Senate. And so to have someone in your position, Lieutenant Colonel, you've served since you were 20. Yeah. So it's been a long time. So tell me what you feel about the legislation. How can we move it forward? What can we do?
I think that the power of this legislation is it serves as a forcing function for Congress to do its job, really. That's really what it comes down to. The fact that Congress has abdicated its responsibility in being held to account and on the record for actually having to cast a vote to declare war, to authorize the use of military force. There's a reason why they have ceded essentially all of that power to the executive, is because they don't want to be on the record. They don't want to have to live with, as we saw with the Iraq War, that vote haunting them when they're on the wrong side. It's maddening to me because they're so quick to call for war, call for economic warfare through sanctions, call for a proxy war where they say, oh, don't worry, we won't have any American boots on the ground. We'll just get other people to go and give them our guns and pay for their salaries to go wage a war on our behalf, as though that's somehow a good thing. They are refusing to take responsibility for putting people's lives in harm's way. When I was deployed, I've been deployed 3 times to 3 different areas, but I remember doing my first deployment to Iraq. There were a few politicians that came through, and they generally come and they land, and they'll stay maybe for 24 hours, maybe a day and a half, shake some hands, take some pictures, and then run back to Washington and say, oh, I just came back from the war. And I at that time, I had left the state house in Hawaii and I volunteered to deploy to Iraq. And my company commander, I served in a medical unit, and I remember we had one of those politicians come from Hawaii out to see the Hawaii troops. And my commander came to me and he's like, excited. He's like, oh, you can take some time off if you want. You can go and see this member of Congress. And I just looked at him and I said, sir, no, thank you. I have better use of my time. When you've lived through and seen the human cost of war firsthand, when you've experienced firsthand the war profiteering that occurs, we had KBR Halliburton stamps on everything in our camp, everything. It literally makes me feel sick to my stomach to see politicians who don't honor the sacrifices that are made, both by those who pay the ultimate price, as well as those who come home potentially with both visible and invisible wounds. They don't care for the families who bear that cost of war. They take the costs and consequences so lightly. This legislation would be a way to force them to do their job. I think getting more people who understand firsthand, and the numbers are becoming less and less now than they were during the post 9/11 20 years of a high level of deployments. But getting those who have been and are impacted directly by this to go and help advocate for it state by state will absolutely have an impact.
Can you speak to maybe some of the troops as far as their feelings on the legislation? Like,
I don't think most people know about it.
really?
Yes. And I spent 17 years in the National Guard, moved over to the Army Reserve in, I think it was 2020 or 2021. But I don't think most people know about it. And quite frankly, if they do, it's not immediately apparent to them why it's important. Because this norm has been put in place. And for the National Guard, they may say, and I won't speak for them, but they may say something like, well, if our country needs us, we have to go. Because it is about fulfilling your responsibility and fulfilling your duty.
Right.
So Congress has not done their job for so long, it's kind of a foreign concept to say, oh, well, they actually have to declare war first? We laugh, but it's true. And I would say most Americans don't really, they may have heard it, but I would assume that most probably haven't.
Right.
And so there's some education, I think, that needs to occur there, which can lead to and should lead to accountability.